got this concept from my good friend. His name is Gary Mayyab. Okay, he actually is the new women's coach at Iowa. Okay, so he's going to be assisting Clarissa Chun, and they're basically co-head coaches for the University of Iowa. Really smart coach, one of the smartest coaches I've ever been around. And Coach Mayyab talks all about stages of development and stages of training. He's a teacher and a coach, which I think are the best coaches because they don't just coach wrestling, they teach you wrestling, okay? And he's a coach of coaches. He talks about these stages of development and these stages of training. The first stage is you must learn how to train. You must learn how to train. If you don't know how to train, then you really can never be a good wrestler, okay? The second stage is you just train for the sake of training, and you get used to working hard, and you learn what hard work is about, and it becomes no big deal, and your perceived level of exertion goes down. That's a really big thing. That's kind of fancy words, perceived level of exertion, but basically it makes it seem like this stuff is not that hard. Whatever I'm having you do, it's not that hard, it's not that big of a deal when you train for the sake of training. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, in the third phase, you actually learn to train to compete. Okay, train to compete, which is different than training for the sake of training and different than learning how to train. Now we're learning how to have emotional control and how to be competitive and fight for something, okay? And that's a whole nother level of competition when you train to compete, okay? The next stage is actually learning to train to win, okay? To actually win matches, to get your hand raised, okay? A whole nother level. You gotta learn how to compete before you can really learn how to win and control your emotions, as well as be more tactical and strategic, and learn how to get your hand raised, learn how to wrestle on the edge, learn how to wrestle with short time, learn how to solve the problem of that your opponent's presenting. You know, if they're in a really low stance, maybe I got to get on their head. If they're really high, there's an open shot there. If they're a scrambler, whatever the problem is, wrestlers have to be really good problem solvers to learn how to win matches. Okay, does this make sense? Okay, in order to get your hand raised, especially on a consistent basis, you got to learn how to win. And that takes training. And the last step, the fifth step, is learning to dominate, or training to dominate. That means I get everything, you get nothing. Okay? And I go out to get my hand raised every time, and I go out to not just wrestle with my opponents, I go out to dominate my opponents. Okay? I go out to kick your butt. I don't just go out to play around with you. And that's a whole nother level. That's ultimately where we want to get to with our wrestling. Okay? But as we're training today, okay, and the rest of our time together, I want you to think about, okay, I'm in this learning how to train phase, or I'm training for the sake of training, or hey, I'm starting to learn how to compete now, okay? And be comfortable where you're at, because as coaches, we got to know where these kids are at and continue to work them through the stages of development. So keep that stuff in mind, okay? Thank you. Great.